Yeah, so the Oregon Remove Animal Cruelty Act, or sorry, Animal Cruelty Exceptions Initiative. The initiative, referred to by the sponsors as the People for the Elimination of Animal Cruelty Exemptions, or PEACE Act, would amend Chapter 167 of the Oregon Revised Statutes to remove certain exemptions to animal cruelty laws. This measure would criminalize certain practices involved in breeding, hunting, fishing, pest control, and some farming methods. It would also establish the Humane Transition Fund to receive revenues from sources made obsolete under the initiative. It sounds great until you start adding the hunting and fishing aspects, pest control, then that gets farming methods. I don't know. Like, there's a lot that people do that are fucked up in those things, but it's also kind of scary to hear that thrown in there. Hood View Chapter President. There are a handful of predators that do make a huge impact on our herbivore species, like deer, throughout the state. If you take away hunting, okay, no, this one is the one that was remember I told you about it? That was supposed to be completely banning hunting and fishing in the state. Literally, it's not fake. It's not an Onion article. It's not exaggeration. There is literally a fucking proposal, a ballot initiative, that somehow collected enough signatures to go on the ballot for vote.
Gosh.
To completely, it's a 100% ban of fishing and hunting. And it's funny because my mom immediately was like, nah, I don't buy that. That doesn't make any sense, especially in Oregon. That's like cultural. That doesn't work. Like, I guarantee that's not actually correct. That's got to be exaggerated. Then she looks it up. Sure enough, it's literally to ban, it's an outright ban on that. And that's actually really what it is. It's actually to ban hunting and fishing completely. This says it was actually received by the Elections Division on October 16th, 2023.
What the heck?
So that means it's
literally
2.5 years since they submitted it. So in other words, they've been collecting signatures now for about 2 years.
Wow.
At least. 2 years. That shows how much this should not. Me and my mom are like 95% confident this will be just absolutely smashed out of existence by voters for, again, obvious reasons. This is the Cascadia. This is the Pacific Northwest. All from not just the very first people who settled here, of the pioneers, and then all the way through all the Native Americans who have been through here for literally tens of thousands of years. But on top of that, everyone to this very day, from that tens of thousands of years ago all the way to now, it's a cultural touchstone. It is literally one of the things that makes us who we are, and makes our land what it is. It's just literally so culturally ingrained. It's literally it's like a part of our DNA. So this should get crushed. The issue of why I would say I'm like 95% confident it will, not 100% on it, is because it depends on how informed the voters are. Because when you word it the way they did there, in the advertising terms, like we just read, I think most voters here would be like, oh yeah, it's actually to, make sure that there's no animal cruelty. It's especially the farm.
They're hiding things on that one.
Fuck no. Well, we already said what the hiding is. Dude. They want to ban hunting and fishing. Whereas Oregon state law already recognizes that animals are sentient beings capable of experiencing pain, stress, and fear. Whereas current exemptions permit unnecessary and inhumane harm to animals. The people of Oregon therefore propose let's just say the Peace Act, to amend Chapter 167 of the Revised Statutes, which currently provides unnecessary exemptions to the laws governing animal abuse, animal neglect, and animal sexual assault. It's not a sentence that should exist. God, I hate people so much. In order to reduce the suffering of animals and improve their quality of life. Be it enacted by the people of the state of Oregon. Fundings in policy, section 1. The people of the state of Oregon find that animal abuse, neglect, and assault is a serious problem in Oregon, and that Oregon needs to amend the current exemptions that allow for the abuse, neglect, and assault of animalia. 2A. The purpose of the People for the Elimination of Animal Cruelty Exemptions, or PEACE Act, is to remove the current exemptions that allow for the inhumane and unnecessary abuse, neglect. You just repeated yourself.
Yes.
What is the point of 2A if it repeats? 2B, it is the policy of the state of Oregon that animals should be cared for in ways that minimize their pain, stress, fear, and suffering, which is common sense.
They're not answering any questions.
Well, again, we're getting there. In fact, let me zoom in again. Like I did last time, because I like it when it's bigger text. Plus, it's probably better for the video, right?
Yeah.
Especially people on phones or tablets. 3. The provisions of this act shall be interpreted consistently with the findings, purposes, and policy objectives stated in this section, and shall not be limited to any policy set forth in Oregon law that could conflict with or be interpreted to conflict with purposes and policy objectives stated in this section. So in other words, this would supersede the already pre-existing laws in Oregon, supposedly.
Wow.
That's immediate egotism. That's fucking insane.
That is immediate egotism.
Yeah, I trust my own state government? Fuck no. But I also don't trust people who fucking talk like that. Fuck off. Removing exemptions. Section 2. Oregon's revised statute 167.310 is amended to read 1. Adequate bedding means bedding of sufficient quantity and quality to permit a domestic animal to remain dry and reasonably clean and maintain a normal body temperature. That's fine. 2A, adequate shelter, quote unquote, includes a barn, doghouse, or other enclosed structure sufficient to protect a domestic animal from wind, rain, snow, sun that has adequate bedding to protect against cold and dampness, that is maintained to protect the domestic animal from weather or physical injury. Again, sounds fine. I know what you probably want to say, which is that, like, who's gonna define that?
Exactly.
Who gets to fucking dictate to people how much is sufficient?
Exactly, man. That is literally what I'm gonna ask. Well, heck, even another question that comes to mind is that, well, what if an animal decides that it doesn't want to use that?
Right. Well,
for crying out loud.
The hope is that if this had passed, and let's say it was just this, that what it would be is it would be clear enough, because they're not specifying that it would only be legally applicable to making sure it's there as an option for them. Because obviously you can't force your animal to fucking do what you want them to do. It's like, because I could see the issue I could see potentially being coming from this, the way that they're talking, is that in reality, what they mean by it is that us Karens get to control your animal. Yeah. So if we decide that your Siberian motherfucking Husky or your Alaskan Malamute, which are made for fucking snow and ice, and want to sleep in the fucking snow and ice, is outside in the snow and ice and is not in your house, or not in booties in a little coat, is obviously being tortured.
Well, no kidding! Exactly,
and you're
man! Jiminy criminy!
Abusing your dog. No, you're not. If you're abusing your dog, you're probably putting him in Arizona.
Yes!
When they're a Malamute or a Husky. Or even a Shiba Inu, actually. Because they're also cold-weather dogs.
Well, man,
Akitas,
this even sets the precedent about...
Japanese Spitz.
This even sets the precedent if this passes or whatever, that they get to decide that the Karens get to decide what meals your pet gets to have.
Yep. Says B, adequate shelter does not include A, crawl spaces under buildings or parts of buildings, such as steps, decks, or stoops. Sort of understand that. Although stoops is definitely ambiguous. Although if... Okay, so they already mentioned basically sheds and stuff, right?
Yes.
So animal shelters. Those are usually open on certain sides anyway, wide open. They don't have a wall on the front usually. It's not like they have a fucking door that's operational. And so that would technically be kind of equivalent to a building. It's a type of building.
Yes!
And because there's only 2 walls usually, sometimes 3, what does that indicate to you? It's no different than them naturally being smart enough to go to the side of the house or a building, a barn that is sheltered from wind and snow and rain. Or going under an eave. So stupid. Or being on a porch. So in other words, yes, that this literally just confirmed this is the Karens being like, your husky's dying of torture because he's in the snow sleeping. It's like, if that's what you have endless compilations of videos where Siberian Husky and Malamute owners will literally just make them and be like, I can't force my dog inside the house.
Yes.
Like, he wants to sleep in this pile of snow.
Exactly.
Because, you know, he's from Siberia. Or Alaska.
Exactly.
Like,
He's
he
from
has.
frickin' Siberia.
They're fucking sled dogs. Like, what do you want from me? You know, like, God. And they will literally throw a fit and a temper tantrum if you try to get them in there. They will argue with you because they refuse to budge because they are comfortable and happy in the fucking snow, like me. So fuck you. You know. C, the inside of a vehicle, if the domestic animal is kept in the vehicle in a manner for a length of time that is likely to be detrimental to the domestic animal's health or safety. D, shelters made from cardboard or other materials that are easily degraded by the elements. E, animal carriers are crates that are designed to provide temporary housing. This goes on and on and on. F, shelters that with wire or chain link floors, unless the domestic animal is a bird. Apparently birds don't matter as much. They can freeze.
Don't matter.
You see, they can freeze to death. They can get all sorts of issues and diseases and skin health problems by being too wet sometimes. And yet, nah, it's fine if they're a bird.
Yeah.
Because apparently they don't matter as much. What? G, shelters surrounded by waste, debris, obstructions, or impediments that could adversely affect animals' health. I mean, that's common sense. 3, why did they just switch from fucking...
What?
They switched from numbers to letters and then back to numbers again. What the hell? But it's just a normal continuation. Hello? Did you not know how far the alphabet goes after G or something? This is pretty sloppily put together.
Mm-hmm.
And they've had 2.5 years to revise it. This was rushed put together. This is totally a set of Karens who put this together.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. They're just so like, they're like seething as they're writing it, and so they keep having all these fucking like inconsistencies. Especially with how long this list goes. Like, look, removing exemptions, it starts here at B. Adequate shelter does not include A, B, C, D, E, F, G, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And it goes back to letters again. And it just resets at A. What the heck? It just keeps going and going and going. G, shelters, no, I already said that. 3, animals means any non-human animal, bird, reptile, amphibian, or fish. 4, domestic animal means an animal other than livestock or equines. Why did they separate horses from livestock? They are literally a form of livestock. So in other words, they obviously have more bias to horses.
Yeah.
That's what that indicates blatantly. This is, it just keeps going further into it you get, the more it proves these are literally just a group of Karens.
Mm-hmm.
Who are the exact ones who will scream at you if your Malamute is sleeping in the snow voluntarily under their own decision making, happily, in a pile of snow.
Exactly.
Domestic animal means an animal
Mule,
other than
tiny,
livestock or
zebra,
horses.
hybrid.
Yeah. That is owned by or possessed by a person. No shit, that's how domestic works. An equine means horse, pony, donkey, mule, hinny, zebra, or any hybrid of any of these animals. No, you don't say. Why do they feel so like it's necessary to be like extremely specific about horses when they are literally also still a livestock animal? Mm-hmm. To that extent that they go and they add on to it. And they're like, it means horse, pony, donkey. Oh no, there's mule. 6. Notice how also this is different. Now this is entirely italic.
Mm-hmm.
Just randomly, here's an italic. The whole thing's in italics. And it's also in brackets. This one has only one bracket. This is so badly put together. It's so rushed together. You can tell they're literally seething as they're fucking putting this together. This is 100% confirmation this is just Karens. These are the people that are mad at you for letting your dog do what it's naturally supposed to be doing. 6. Good animal husbandry, quote unquote, includes, but is not limited to, the dehorning of cattle, the docking of... That's actually weird because it's natural to them to have horns.
Yeah.
And yet they're saying it's good animal husbandry to remove the horns. If they really were actually all about that, you would think they'd want to keep your fucking horns. That's backwards.
Okay.
The docking of horses, sheep, or swine, and the castration and neutering of livestock,
What the heck?
according to the accepted practices of veterinary medicine. So in other words, they're saying that you should never allow any of your livestock to ever breed, no matter what.
Yeah.
You can only buy from a certified breeder, theoretically. Either that, or they might want to also get rid of breeding. But then, how are they deciding who's a certified breeder? Is it just a bunch of Karens that go in there with a fucking clipboard and cameras and... like, just grill them nonstop?
That's my question, too.
There's too much mud on that part of the floor. That looks like shit. That's not acceptable. In a fucking stable.
No kidding.
Like, okay, here we go. 7. The law enforcement animal, quote unquote, means a dog or a hearse used in law enforcement work under the control of a corrections officer, parole, or probation officer, police officer, or youth correction officer, as those terms are defined, and blah 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 blah. Who has successfully completed at least 360 hours of training and care. Jesus Christ! Or who has passed the demonstration of minimum standards by the Oregon Police Canine Association, or unaccredited or recognized. Bro, you literally just said it's defined in this statute. But then you just go and continue to read it out anyway. What's the point of that? Why did you even reference the statute then?
I have no idea, man.
What in the hell? 8-7. 7-6. Oh, sorry. What the hell? What? Wait, why? What is this inconsistency? B. Livestock does not include... Citizines? What the fuck is a citizen?
P.
Oh, right. Paciticine. I hate language so much sometimes.
Parrots.
Oh, it's a Ross Perot.
Yes, it's a parrot.
I have so many questions. Why say citizen? Why use the Latin name for parrots?
I don't know, man.
And why are you separating them from birds when they are a literal fucking bird? And why do you feel the need to define them as not included in livestock when literally no one would ever, anywhere in the world, I don't think, would mistake them for a livestock animal? Like, at that point, you should have done it with ostriches or something, because they're a bird and they are livestock, technically. Well, so you use the Latin name for parrot, and you felt the need specifically to do that, so separate them, A, from birds, even though they're a literal fucking bird, which you already talked about, and then B, further clarify, which is technically more confusing instead, because not only did you already do that part, but then you're now also feeling the need to define it as not a livestock animal, which no one would have fucking thought was a livestock animal anyway.
Durr!
I feel like if you're brain damaged, you know that still, or you literal have literal mental retardation, you would not make that mistake. That's... what? A. Food of sufficient quantity and quality to allow for normal growth and maintenance of body weight. Who's going to define that?
Who's going to define that?
And what makes you more right than anyone else?
Yes.
Oh, by the way, there you go. I forgot to put that up there for context.
Yeah.
Rules Perez. B. Open or adequate access to potable water in sufficient quantity to satisfy the animal's needs. Access to snow or ice is not adequate to potable water. You know what's weird is that I guarantee these are already in the state statutes and the acts and everything that's in Oregon state law for preventing animal cruelty is things like that, and even things like this probably. But also sufficient quality specifically for me is the part that I'm actually hitched on when it comes down to the food aspect.
That's exactly the thing that I'm hitched on. I don't know what the heck that means.
90% of cat and dog food brands that you buy and food that you buy, kibbles, are actually technically terrible for their health.
Exactly.
And they're not at all formulated in a way that is any way but just byproducts and cheap oils and everything else, because it's cheapest to make it that way. Like there's actually like Iams and Friskers and Meow Mix and Purina and all these big brands.
Well,
they're actually terrible for your animals. Look at this. This is how many pages? There's 10 fucking pages.
No kidding.
And already, like, it's going to be 3 of them that are just these exhaustive lists of, like, it does not include, this is the definition, this is specifically the correct way to define this. These are the controls. But yeah, so, like, this is just common sense, and I guarantee this is just universally, and I mean universal as in worldwide. This is just the standard that everyone follows, because...
Dude, who decides this stuff? I mean, the language is so open-ended that they're...
Actually, no, it's the opposite right now. Other than the food thing, right? And then the housing part. That's pretty open-ended and ambiguous. But everything else has been, like, weirdly specific. I mean, again, the parrot thing's a perfect case in point of that. They're being, like, excessively specific. It's so weird. For a domestic animal other than a dog, engaged in herding or protecting livestock, access to adequate shelter. Wait, so they're saying that if you have a farm dog, that's a livestock dog, meant to herd and to protect livestock, they're not included in needing adequate or sufficient shelter to them. Huh. So all other dogs, except for those dogs, they don't need shelter, apparently. What?
What?
I'm sorry? What? Wow. Fucking ableism.
No kidding.
Discrimination. What the hell, Karen? Continuous access to an area. By the way, do you keep noticing like these like random bolds?
Yes.
Just for no reason. They're just there. It's like, okay. Like for here in these contexts, it makes some sense, but it also doesn't make sense that they have 2 different numbers because there's no context for that. F. And now it's just randomly in fucking italics again. 2. Any practice of good animal husbandry is not a violation of this section. 3. 2. Animal abuse in the 2nd degree is a class C, B misdemeanor. Why do they keep doing this? Is it C or is it B? So they're basically, in other words, it would be revising it so that it treats it like you're abusing a person instead of an animal. Yeah. I had to make sure that's what it was saying, which I sort of get, but also it's kind of predictable at the same time because animals are humans, unless they're apparently livestock dogs or parrots. They don't matter as much, apparently.
Yeah, they don't matter.
Yeah. For the sake of this video's length, this episode's length, I am going to do something I wasn't originally intending to, but because this is droning on and it's really like listening to a Karen go on and on and on and on all the time, skip basically directly to the part that we're concerned with, which is obviously the hunting and fishing aspect. I'm just like looking through these really quickly in case they did at some point in these crimes they're listing out say anything about hunting and fishing and the animals involved in that, but it doesn't look like I'm seeing that. But yet they're throwing the whole wildlife thing in there, which is why I was wondering. Wildlife, section 6. It's still just crimes.
Yeah. Lawful fishing and hunting and trapping activities.
Where is that?
Right there, G.
It says commercially grown poultry or whatever. Wildlife management practices under color of law. Scientific and agricultural research, teaching that involves the use of animals, reasonable activities, like, jacking off dolphins for research. Or wildlife rehabilitation. Yeah, I don't know about that one. Reasonable activities undertaken in connection with control of vermin or pests. reasonable handling and training techniques. Subsection 1 of this section does not create an exemption from Oregon revised statute, blah, 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 prohibition against the use of domestic animal. I don't see how that applies to this stuff that is in its own section. Especially that last one. Sexual assault of an animal does not apply to. I guess I get like the actual animal abuse in the second degree thing with... I don't understand it for some of these. Like, commercially grown poultry? So it wouldn't apply if you're doing it commercially with fowl. Apparently. Which is just bizarre to me. Because, like, how does that make any sense? And then... this is redundant because it says animals subject to good animal husbandry practices. So I feel like it's kind of not necessary to put there. This is obviously slaughter related stuff. So again, that's exempt, which makes sense. Lawful fishing, hunting, and trapping activities. I can sort of see it under, right? I don't know. It's just bizarre. Anyway, humane transition fund is established in the state treasury, separate and distinct from the general fund. Interest earned by the fund shall be credited to the fund. 2. The humane transition fund shall consist of a money deposited into the fund pursuant to section 11, which is the next section. B. Money appropriated or otherwise transferred to the fund via the legislative assembly. C. All other money deposited in the fund from any source. 3. Pursuant to subsection 2B of this section, the legislative assembly shall appropriate or transfer to the fund an amount sufficient to fully fund the grants program required by section 12. Section 11, 1. To the greatest extent allowable by law, all subsidies distributed in Oregon should be used for a purpose that would no longer be allowable by implementation of this act, instead be credited to itself, the Humane Transition Fund. So in other words, they're trying to appropriate funds. They're basically like, let's shuffle these funds away from these other things into our own fund for ourselves.
Yeah.
Which is obviously kind of sleazy. Fishy. It's not unpredictable by any means, but it's like, really? Like, Section 12. The Transitional Oversight Council shall oversee and approve grants to assist in the individual and societal transition away from engaging in activities that would become prohibited by the implementation of this act. 2. The Transitional Oversight Council may provide grants to any of the following so long as they are pursuant to subsection 3 of this section. A. Existing agencies or organizations, whether government or community-based. B. Emerging or newly formed organizations, whether government or community-based. C. Private individuals. 3. Here we go again with the swapping between numbers and letters. The Transitional Oversight Council may provide grants to be used for the following purposes only. A. To help with food assistance, either directly, food and cash benefits to individuals, or indirectly, funds for opening private or state-run grocery stores in communities to serve food access. But that doesn't have anything to do with your fucking bill that this is in. So this is why you read bills typically, because they all sneak certain things in. That doesn't sound like a bad thing. That sounds like a really good thing, actually. But I'm hesitant to say it is, because who knows what their actual intentions are.
Well, no kidding.
Because why did you sneak that in there?
Yeah.
Unless you didn't expect people to know it's in it. So what's your angle, you know?
Exactly.
Because this doesn't have anything to do with what this bill is about. It's about animal abuse, and yet you randomly have that there.
Huh.
And that's the fund. This is for the fund that they want to form, that they can use it for that purpose instead of animal stuff, even though...
To replace lost income due to the implementation of this act.
Until the individual has completed a job retraining program and acquired new employment. Is that due to people who would be convicted under it, or are you referring
Dude,
to the fact that these changes might affect farmers and stuff, and therefore it's them?
that's what I'm thinking.
It might
That's
actually, it could
literally
even
what
be
I'm
both
thinking.
technically. I'm assuming it's the latter though. To cover all costs of operating a job retraining program, to cover the costs of animal care for individuals or organizations supporting animals who could no longer be killed or harmed due to the imitation of the. You know what's weird to me is that none of this, at least as far as I was able to see, like that section we might have skipped might have contained it, although I have a feeling it didn't, because it was way too specific, and especially onto individuals and to farmers. So like, if it turns out that this whole bill does not have what I would think it would have in it, which is that it would address the kill shelters,
Yes.
because Oregon has tons of kill shelters. You think, especially the breeding aspect they talked about, right?
Yeah.
What you would think they would want to emphasize, hyper emphasize in this, because it's way more important than all this other stupid shit that they're trying to be semantic about and pedantic, which is infuriatingly annoying.
No kidding.
As a pedantic and semantic person, this is unnecessary and excessive. It's so stupid. It's literally picking at fucking straws at this point, splitting hairs. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing is, because 90% of this is already fucking covered legally in the state. So they're just, and they want to tweak it in a way that technically doesn't really change any. I don't know. It's really frustrating. But like, TNR, trap and release
Yeah.
of all the different strays and stuff. They should, in fact, this was what some of that fun should go to. It should be emphasized that a lot of this fund doesn't go to the food stuff because it has nothing to do with what the fuck it's supposed to be, which is stopping animal abuse. What it should be is they should be emphasizing trap and release of stray animals and ferals, because then that way they won't have the overload at shelters anymore, and then kill shelters may become obsolete because they won't run out of space.
Hang on. So, Transitional Oversight Council, Section 13. The director of the Oregon Department of Human Services, DHS, shall establish a Transitional Oversight Council for the purpose of determining how funds will be distributed to grant applicants pursuant to Section 12.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You're now jumping ahead though.
Well, hang on. I want to check this out a little bit.
Well, we're gonna get to that here. I'm gonna stop you from doing that. We're only 2 away anyway. Go away. To cover, because I don't want to jump back and forth.
Yes.
I don't want to forget about something. So, to assist in conservation and wildlife, rewilding efforts, which I do like. That's fantastic. Especially if it creates a bunch of rewilding jobs.
That's what I'm thinking it is.
I want that. I've always wanted a job like that. And so if they could open it up to more people rather than just having it locked away by all the stupid criteria that most of these outdoors jobs require, that would be amazing, because then I might be able to get that as a job. That would be fucking awesome. Except it's probably going to be just volunteer basis, and then it's going to be like, fuck you.
Dude,
Like,
I seriously doubt it. I seriously doubt it.
Yeah. Any other purpose that is unanimously agreed upon by all members of the Transitional Oversight Council. And then the section 13 that Sean just read out is A. The council shall consist of at least one member from each of the following categories only. One, a representative of the Department of Agriculture, a representative of the Department of Fish and Wildlife, or ODFW, a representative of the Office of Tribal Affairs, a representative of the Oregon Department of Human Services Vocational Rehabilitation Program, that's actually kind of smart, the representative of Oregon Department of Human Services Self-Sufficiency Program, which is basically SNAP and Medicaid.
So I'm just going to say this right here.
Yeah.
DHS, Vocational Rehabilitation, they are a big, what was it called, program that the state government has implemented. And they have offices in Beaverton where they basically...
They have all DHS offices have vocational rehab that I know of.
Well, ultimately, they help people find jobs. So I'm betting that this that this fund in and of itself is actually going to come together to
create the jobs in the conservation and rewilding.
exactly.
And if it's through they go through the vocational rehab, especially in self-sufficiency,
Yeah.
that hopefully would in fact indicate that yes, they do in fact want to make sure that people that are on low incomes or on food stamps or whatever else that need a job or that are disabled are able to then have those jobs.
Exactly.
And if that's the case, then we're no longer fucking boxed the fuck out by 5 to 10 years of experience in the field and then in that job. And then, you know, having 2 college degrees. Because, like, you look up any job with, you know, U.S. Department of Forestry, U.S., you know, National Park Service, or even Oregon State Parks and State Forests, or Department of Forestry. They require you, even just to fucking rehabilitate trails, they require you to have 2 fucking degrees and to fucking have 5 to 10 years of experience in the field.
Wow.
In the job. And it's like, and you wonder why you're so short-handed. You wonder why you can't get any new fucking employees.
Exactly.
That's why. You're boxing everyone out, and all your old employees that have been there forever are aging the fuck out. They're retiring, They're quitting, they're dying, literally, you know, because they're so fucking old. That's why you're short-handed, because you're literally preventing yourself, you're your own worst enemy when it comes down to hiring people that actually want and need these jobs. And so this is really cool, also, especially considering it might open up the idea of, again, actual Oregonians being able to actually go back, put back into the earth of their own state, which would be nice. I still don't like how this is clearly, at least the main section, the first 7 pages was all Karens. This looks like, this is getting to a point where now it looks like it's actually like a lawyer actually put this together.
Absolutely.
Whereas our legal counsel who's experienced with this, they actually do it concisely well. See, you even using Roman numerals now?
Yeah.
Whereas before, it was all, you could tell, almost seething Karens, just like putting it together.
Karens, yeah.
And so this is almost like an amendment where they're like, here, now we get this aspect in here. So this is really the part that I would actually be most interested in.
That is,
because this is the most
substance that
based.
I would be most interested in.
So it's like, if we, admittedly, if we can get rid of 90% of what the Karens put into this.
Yes.
In the first 7 pages. If we can get it revised, pushed off to 2027, November.
Absolutely.
Ballot. And get it revised, kick all that shit out. Because it's not necessary. Most of it's redundant. It's just fucking stupid. And it's splitting hairs. And then keep this aspect of it. And this portion. I'm all about it. That's fucking amazing. Then it's super supportable. But right now, in its current state, it's not supportable.
Absolutely.
It's fucking too stupid at the moment. But this aspect is amazing. If this was by itself, this would be amazing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Representative from each of the 9 tribal governments in Oregon, and there should be more of them, but there isn't. Representative from the Oregon Farm Bureau, 3 members of communities that would be directly impacted by the implementation of this act. So hopefully almost all of them would be Eastern Oregon, although then again, so east of the Cascades, I should say. The issue, though, is that their politics and needs are very niche to their rural lives. And also more conservative and Republican. And that's not necessarily conducive to conservation and rewilding stuff, because they like extraction and everything else more. So yeah, but then again, it'd probably still be more balanced if you have those exclusively people from east of the Cascades anyway there, because, you know, they would balance it out sociopolitically a little bit better, which would be good. It might mean that they can't really get anything done now because, like the governments, they're just like loggerheads nonstop and they refuse to compromise, but God forbid. 3 members of communities not directly impacted by the implementation of this act. So random city slickers, I guess. If it pays well, even though it's political and I hate that. What if I was a part of the oversight committee? I'll do that, no problem. And just to really make sure I piss them off once I'm there, if I'm there, you know, and we meet with Tina Kotek or something, I'll buy and wear an XXXY athletics thing. Say nothing. Just do that to be a subtle dick about it and be like, what's up? A professional in the field of veterinarian medicine, makes sense. Yeah. A person who works for a nonprofit farmed animal sanctuary. I like that a lot. I like that better than the veterinary one. At least 2 people who have a documented history of advocating on behalf of animals who would be protected from harm by the implementation of this act. Hang on. Documented history. That's so open-ended and ambiguous. How much is like, what do you have a criteria? What is your baseline for how much is
Wait,
needed?
hang on. What was it?
What? Says at least 2 people who have documented history of advocating on behalf of animals who would be protected from harm by the implementation of this act. So, like, that's why I'm asking.
Okay,
Is the
what the heck? That is so open-ended.
That's what I'm saying. It's super. There's no threshold there. You need a threshold so you can have a minimum amount of advocacy that you're requiring.
Yes,
is what you should be having. And then again, that's still not quite enough because now you actually do kind of need to split hairs and be like, okay, how are we going to define advocacy?
Yes.
Is it enough to simply go and petition? Is it enough to sign signatures? Is it enough to, go to your local REI on the days that they have the tabling things and events and just sit around hoping people pay attention
just
and
sit there and
get a signature
and
like
stuff.
like how much is also needed to be done. One of the chief petitioners of this act or a person appointed on their behalf. 2, a quorum consists of 7 members. The term of office of a member of the council shall be 4 years. So it's going to be literally a true political position then. Vacancies shall be appointed for the unexpired term. 4A. To the extent permissible by law, a member of the council performing services for the council may receive compensation from his or her employer for the time spent performing services as a council member. It says that they may receive compensation from their employer for the time spent performing services as a council member. Which odds are most employers are going to say, yeah, fuck that. This is not covered in our own handbook, company handbook. If a member of the council is not compensated by their employer as set forth in subsection 4A of this section, that member shall be entitled to compensation and expenses as provided by Oregon revised statute 292.495. So I guess, in other words, you get taxpayer money instead, because it's still technically a public position in office. C. Nothing in subsection 4 of this section excuses or exempts a member of the council from complying with any applicable provision of Oregon's ethics laws and regulations, including provisions of Oregon Revised Statute Chapter 244. You don't say. Miscellaneous. Section 14, this is the last page. I'm not seeing anything about the ban on hunting and fishing. In fact, I only saw that one thing about hunting and fishing mentioned. And it was basically nothing. So that's weird. Because they even, on the advertising portion of it, they emphasized that. And I know there was one that was actually literally going to ban hunting and fishing. So this is interesting. I wonder if that means they did revise it. And they just didn't revise the advertising text. Section 14, effective dates. This act shall become effective pursuant to Article 4, Section 1, 4D, of the Oregon Constitution. 2, amendments to statutes by Section 2 to Section 9 that become operative 30 days after the election at which the act is approved. Section 15, servability. If any provision of this act or its application to any person or circumstance is held invalid, the invalidity does not affect any other provision or application of this act that can be given effect without the invalid provision or application. And to this end, the provisions of the act are servable.
Yeah.
Okay. That is a really weird one.